Now that we have the basics of PPCs under our belt, we're going to be taking a look at some of the more advanced things to do with PPCs. So the first thing we look at is efficiency. You can tell just by looking at placement of a point on a PPC graph if your economy is being efficient or not. So what you see on the screen here is a PPC showing capital goods and consumer goods and shows everything in between. You then have different points A, B, C, D, and E. A, B, and C are on the curve. That means that it is being efficient, which essentially means there's no way to make anybody else better off without making at least one person worse off. Now, yes, that's a bit ambiguous of a definition. Luckily, we don't have to get too deep into that thought process, but that's just generally how economics defines efficiency. So any point along the PPC is going to be efficient. So A, B, C, even all the way on the axis, on either the X or Y axis would be considered efficient. If your economy is operating below the PPC or inside the PPC, that's where point D is. This is inefficient. This means that you're not using all of your resources to the best of their abilities. Normally, this means we're in a recession. If your point is above the PPC or outside of the PPC, like point E, that means you can't get there yet. It's not possible. You need economic growth in order to achieve that. A few more notes on efficiency. Involuntary unemployment is inefficiency. Now, you might be saying, what's involuntary unemployment? Anytime you're unemployed, isn't that involuntary? Kind of. It depends on your definition of unemployment. In this case, if you leave a job and you just haven't found a job yet, that's technically voluntary unemployment. In macroeconomic terms, that's frictional unemployment. For micro, you don't have to know those types of unemployment. You just have to know if it wasn't your choice to be unemployed. In other words, if you were laid off, that means that things are being inefficient, which is how we relate it to a recession. Recessions occur, recessions are marked by high levels of unemployment, which occur through cyclical means, which is a fancy economics term of just saying the economy is bad, so people got laid off. So all of that goes to the idea of if you have full employment, you're on the curve. If you have less than full employment, you're under the curve. The lower unemployment you have, the closer to the PPC you get. If you have a completely efficient economy, as I said before, that means you're on the PPC, and it means that you have efficiency and allocation, which just means your capital is distributed to maximize social benefits. Remember, in this case, capital is sort of the means of production. It is your factories, your machines, and things of that nature. So that is distributed to help out the maximum societal groupings. And your economy is on the PPC. Now, when we're looking at opportunity cost in the PPC, if we have a straight production possibilities curve, that means we have a constant opportunity cost. As you move along the production possibilities curve, you will give up the same amount each time you move. If you have increasing opportunity cost, that means you have a curved PPC. It's a bowed outward. Now, that's more realistic, but it also makes the math a little bit more difficult. Here you see the different types. On the left-hand side, you see increasing opportunity cost. As you see, if you're moving A to B, you give up less, but you give up less guns than if you move B to C. When you move C to D, you give up even more, and then D to E, you give up even more. So you have an increasing opportunity cost. The same would work if you were working the other direction. So moving E to D, you'd give up less butter than you would moving D to C or C to B or B to A. So that's the idea of increasing opportunity cost. Constant is there in the middle. As you see, it is a straight line. You're giving up the same amount of butter each time you move up and to the left. So moving E to D, D to C, C to B, B to A, you give up the same amount of butter for the number of guns. The one on the right, you don't really have to do in micro. It doesn't show up, but in case you were interested, because I know some people do ask me this every year, if there is a decreasing opportunity cost, that means you have a bowed inward PPC. So this just means that you have a decreasing opportunity cost for each time you move along. So if you're moving A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E, you're giving up less guns as you produce butter. But once again, decreasing opportunity cost doesn't really show up on the AP test. Increasing and constant do, though. If we're looking for economic growth, we talked a little bit about this the other day, but if you're looking for economic growth and you want to produce outside your PPC, you can do that through a sustained rise in your aggregate output. In other words, your economy can produce more, which makes sense. Production possibilities, it's what your economy can produce. So if your economy can produce more, then your PPC shifts to the right, and you have increased your production possibilities. I know that was a bit repetitive, but it happens sometimes. So you can see on this graph the outward shift. Now, what causes that economic growth? In our demonstration, it was the creation of new technology. The copy and paste method was able to increase your economic growth. In other things that can do it, any sort of increase to your factors of production, a new addition to your labor market, you find new natural resources, you have better or more abundant capital, machinery, your entrepreneurship somehow became better. Progress in technology is the one that is the most frequent that shows up on the AP test. This also normally bends the shape of the PPC. But any movement, any ability to produce more overall, even if it only moves one side of the PPC, is considered economic growth. So it is important to remember